-3. 3 goods to 6 bads. So tied with Fusco, or one behind Fusco, depending on how you count the penalty, for the most most fails individually. Ended up being a -3, but he did have 3 pluses. And not super terrible, but not as good as he's been playing. Then now the 2 offensive linemen who did play good individual games. We had Mike Harris, right guard, with 4 goods to 3 bads, a +1. And Berger, 4 goods to 2 bads, a +2. So your best offensive linemen, by how I grade them in order from last week's game, were Berger with +2, Mike Harris with +1, Fusco with -2, Clemmings with -3, Khalil with -4. Then in the wide receivers, they were +13 collectively, 13 and no minuses. However, they were not all that impactful in the actual receiving game. But they got plenty of pluses for good blocking. Everybody wants to complain about where is Mike Wallace in the passing game. He's run blocking for Adrian Peterson, turning those 5 and 10 yard gains into 15, 25, 30, and he's loose. Sound bites. So don't sweat it, okay? Things are working just fine. All the wide receivers played particularly well. All the tight ends played particularly well, except for Rudolph's drop of the gimme touchdown pass, which we all remember. Tight ends were 13 pluses to 4 minuses collectively, a +9 as a unit. Running backs as a unit were 16 and over 3, a +13. AP was 11 and 2, a +9. And Teddy, for a quarterback and for how hard I grade, put in a great performance with 14 pluses over 10 minuses, a +4. Anytime you're, in my gradings, a quarterback who has a positive number there at the end of that grading, that's above a C. That's like that's B-, B+, B+, somewhere in there. So nothing wowing, low yards, low touchdowns. Had the one that was dropped, nothing wowing for yards per attempt. Still sacked too many times, it feels like. I don't know how much they actually sacked him. I mean, they're more just he was running around again. But but there's your film grades, and then when I looked at the best thing about this was I did all that. Went through all the individual grades, person by person, collectively into units, and then I went, okay, based off of how I graded all this, this is what I think the outcome of the game would have been, at least in the box score. I know they won and I know what the score was and stuff, but I didn't know how many first downs there were, what the time of possession was, third down conversion, anything along those lines whatsoever. I had no idea what any of those stats were. Just kind of the game outcome. So I was like, okay, well, looking at these numbers, I made guesses like Vikings had to have time of possession in their favor. Vikings likely got more first downs. I would guess that their third down conversion was pretty good, based off these numbers as well. They won the turnover battle most likely based off of these numbers. All these kinds of things, and for the most part, they all held up to be true. Then when I went and researched the actual game statistics, I went through and went, yeah, they actually all matched up with my gradings, with the exception of our third down conversion percentage. We were actually below 500, 4 of 11 on third down conversions last week, which surprised me, and that actually, I believe, is the primary and maybe the only reason that it was a one-score game, just up until midway through the fourth quarter when we finally started to pull away with it a little bit. As much as we were outplaying them, the scoreboard didn't reflect how much better we were playing. So I think then when I saw that, I was like, okay, well, that number doesn't match up. That's odd. And okay, well, maybe that matches up with this. So that's something that the Vikes are going to need to improve on beating if they are going to beat the Packers this week. So moving on to my Packers preview this week, we'll keep it short and sweet. There is an 87% chance of Vikings victory. That is right. 60% chance the Vikings win by 8 or less. 27% chance they win by 9 or more. There's only a 12% chance that the Packers win by 8 or less, and there's a 1% chance that the Packers win by 9 or more. Many reasons for this. Primarily, Packers are going in the wrong direction. They got problems. Vikings are doing the opposite. Take away the player names, take away the team names, take away any history. Just look at the facts. Look at the numbers, look at the facts. Vikings are a better team across the board right now, with the exception of the individual play at quarterback. However, as long as Teddy's in the plus, when it comes to the end of the grading of his performance, that's all we need from him. We're the number 1 rushing team in all of football. We're the second worst passing team in all of football. We've only lost 2 games. We don't need for Teddy to throw for 300 yards ever to win a game. We need to run the ball successfully, and we need to play very good bend don't break defense, where we've allowed the least amount of points, or the second least amount of points, of any team in all of football this year. Good fundamental old school traditionalist football. And the Packers, on the flip side, aren't good at any of that stuff right now. They're not good at anything right now, really, with the exception of some of their defense. Their defense has actually been playing okay as of late. On the season as a whole, they've got decent rushing statistics, but it's been really up and down. They've had health issues there. It sounds like Eddie Lacy is going to be playing splitting time with Starks still starting coming up this Sunday, which is a 3 o'clock game now. By the way, no longer at noon. It will be at 3 o'clock, Vikings-Packers. But so, Packers, you would think, one person might think, if you're on the Packers side, you go, well, we've struggled to run it here from time to time, but, that's because we've had Lacy injured, and now he's healthy, and Starks is healthy, and we'll be good. Well, the problem with that is your offensive line is way more responsible for your success running the football than the running back is. That's just a simple fact of football. And the Packers have their 3 best offensive linemen all on the injury report right now. Tackle Brian Bulaga is not practicing. Sitton is not practicing, and Lang is not practicing. And those are 2 Pro Bowl guards and a Pro Bowl tackle right there. You got that kind of what's the word I'm looking for? You got that kind of liability on the offensive line going up against a Vikings defense that is eating up good offensive lines, just winning man-to-man matchups like they did last week against the decent Oakland Raiders offensive line, mind you. There's no reason to believe or think that Linval Joseph, Sharif Floyd, Everson Griffin, and whoever else gets in there on the act, whether it be B-Rob, Hunter, Johnson, or Greenway, Barr, or Kendricks on the blitz. I believe Kendricks will be back this week as well. There's no reason to believe that the Packers' offensive line can handle our defensive front 7 at all, period. Like, it shouldn't even be close. I should really limit what they can do play calling. And I also, the way their receivers have been playing as of late too, we have a good secondary, especially if Terrence Newman's good all of a sudden now, or at least not terrible. I'll take anything better than not terrible for Terrence Newman. Because Munnerlyn's been great. Rhodes has been great despite the penalties. Harrison Smith has been great despite a few, could have been better performances as of late. Sendejo seems to be getting a little bit better and not stinking quite as much. And the Packers receivers, they can't seem to get open. They're dropping passes left and right in that Detroit Lions game. Edge there definitely goes to the Vikings secondary. So, everything from the Vikings defense to the Packers offense matches up 100%. You can't argue this in favor of the Vikings, with the exception that Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers, and he's still Aaron Rodgers. And even though everyone says he's, not doing good as of late and what's wrong with Aaron Rodgers and blah, blah, blah. He's thrown 21 touchdown passes to 3 interceptions on the year with a quarterback rating of approximately 108. How bad could the guy be doing, really? Like, he's not the reason they've lost the last 3 games. He's never the reason they lose a game, ever. When they lose, it feels like. That's like it's a blue moon, okay? When Aaron Rodgers is the reason for a Packers loss, that is the blue moon of NFL football. So just looking at it unbiasedly, everything's 100% Vikings favor, that side. Then you flip it around, so long as health is there, really the only issues on offense is ball security, both with Teddy Bridgewater and Adrian Peterson. One would be decision making, the other would be, hanging on to it. So long as things are good there and the offensive line can play at the, acceptable level that it has been playing at for several weeks now, maybe even a month or more, probably more than a month if I went through all of my lists here. I bet it's probably been a good 5 weeks that the Vikings offensive line has had a good overall performance as a unit every single game. So as long as those 2 things, the ball security, not turning it over with AP and Teddy, and then the offensive line, they don't need to be mind-blowingly amazing, but they can't get lit up, which I don't think they should. Clay Matthews is also on the injury report. B.J. Raji's getting into fights with Clinton Dix or whatever. They're just a mess. Julius Peppers is their sacks leader right now, and he's like 69 years old. So they do have a decent secondary, though. I like Shields. I like some of the Packers secondary. But again, that doesn't really hurt the Vikings much at all either. If Clay Matthews pass rush and their secondary, we're not reliant ever on passing the ball to win the game. We're second worst in the NFL in passing the ball. Yet, we've got one of the 5 best records in all of football. Why? Because we're the best at running the football, and we're one of the best, if not the best, at defense. And there's no reason to think that with the Packers' strengths and weaknesses that we won't be able to impose all of our strengths onto theirs, and that their strengths don't really affect, our game plan very much at all. So no worries. This is one of the most confident I feel as a Vikings fan going into a Packers game maybe ever in my entire life. It's quite possible. Now watch me jinx them. They go out, lay an egg, and the Packers win by like 17 or something, my 1% chance. What was all that 1 in a million talk? So you're telling me there's a chance. Samsonite, I was way off. I knew it started with an S, though. But so there is your Purple Vein Packer preview, Skol Vikings. If the Vikings win this game, ramifications for this win, Vikings win this, holy cow, driver's seat, 2 games up, tiebreaker, can't lose head-to-head tiebreaker with them. Even if we lose the next time, then would have the division record if we can just go on and beat Chicago the last time we got to play them, because we'd have a 5-1 division record to the Packers 4-2, so we would still own the tiebreaker. It's just huge benefits to the Vikings if they can win this game. Start actually looking at a possible number 2 seed in the playoffs and have a first round bye. Playoffs? You want to talk playoffs? Yes, I do. But that's another day. We got more to talk yet, and we're at the 2.5 mark. Thanks for sticking with me. But we got to pick this week's NFL games yet. I already told you what's going to happen in the Vikes game. Vikings are going to win, and they're likely going to win by, I'd say about 4, 5, 6, 7 points, somewhere in there. 8 or less is what I'm predicting. Just because that's their style, not because it's going to be that competitive close of a game. I think it's going to be a similar game to last week's Raiders game, where we're pretty much in the driver's seat the whole time, outplaying them. Just the scoreboard doesn't quite dictate that, but eventually when it's all said and done, we have the win, and that's that. So there's my prediction on that game officially, but let's go through all of them as we do here. All right, Thursday night game this week, another division matchup. We got the Tennessee Titans on the road